Well, good afternoon and welcome to this Flow360 training webinar in which we are going to look at the new option in Flow360 to log a help desk issue, fault or service request using a simplified step-through process of the main help desk form, which you can now access as an alternative way to log things. So I'm currently logged into our demo solution as a member of staff, as Anne Jeffries, and I'm going to start this process in the usual way by simply clicking on the new Help Desk Issue button on my start screen. Now, because I'm logged in as Anne, of course, the system knows who I am, so I don't need to see the bit of the form that confirms my identity. It's taken me by default to Tucker's house because Anne is a member of the house staff, and all I need to do at this point is say, what is the location? Okay, so maybe it's the ground floor and the living room of Tucker's house, and I'm going to click the next button, and I can see immediately that there are 3 issues already logged. The system then asks me just to confirm that I'm not about to duplicate one of those, and in fact the thing I'm about to log, which is to do with the door lock, is not one of those, so I'm going to click the next button, and now all I need to say is that the door lock is broken, and having entered that, you can see I then get a confirmation up here that I have now entered the minimum amount of information, and I can confirm at this point, or indeed confirm and log out, and you'll see that I have the 2 options here, the confirm button, the confirm and log out button, in exactly the same way as they appear on the full form, where they appear at the top on the right. So I'm going to click the confirm and log out button, and that, of course, logs my issue on the system, notifies the relevant team or manager in the usual way, and logs me out all in one go. Let's just come back in then. Let's log in once again as Anne, and let's just review what has gone into the system and check what is there, and maybe look at adding a different issue. So I'm logging in again into the demo system. I'm going to go to my help desk list, so I can do that by going to my home and then looking at the tab that says my help desk, and I can see obviously door lock broken. That issue that I just logged is there as the most recent issue logged on the system. Okay, so that's the sort of the new simplified process. Let's just have a look at that again and see how that compares to using the full form. So again, I'm going to click on the new Help Desk Issue button, and it takes me by default to the step-through process. Before we add anything, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that the full form button is available in the step process itself, and if I click on full form, it simply takes me back to the standard form that you will be familiar with. Note at the same time that we've made some simplifications, a little bit of the full form, reduced the amount of visual clutter to a degree which we hope will make it a little bit easier for you to work through. And note on the full form that the step through button is available. Now that actually means we can quite happily switch backwards and forwards from the step-through process to the full form process whenever we feel like it, at any point during the course of logging an issue. So if I go here and I select Tucker's house, first floor, room 101, and then I step back to the full form, we can see that's mirrored on the full form that I've selected Tucker's house, first floor, room 101. So let me just again complete. We'll go to the full form. I'll click the next button, having confirmed the location. There are clearly no existing issues for that location because it's taken me straight through to the green section where I just need to say what is the fault that I need to report. And I can say that the light is broken. And at that point, I can confirm and log out. I mean, that's the entire process. If I switch, however, at this point, we go back to the full form, you can see the same details entered in the full form. So I could easily just confirm and log out from here, just as easily as I could do that from the step through process. So let's just hit the confirm button at that point. And as usual, it takes me through to the card. Now, what happens if we want to go to a room location first and then log an issue from there? Up until the last release of Flow360, in order to search for a location, you would have to go to the My Site or the button and use the quick search under your site name. We've made a small change, which means that you can now actually search for locations directly from the new Helpdesk issue button as well. Effectively, it does the same. So if I type in 102 at this point, it jumps me immediately to room 102. And if I click New Helpdesk issue, at that point, I'm straight into the green form because it knows who I am, so I don't need to confirm my identity. It knows the location already because I've come directly from room 102. All I have to do is say, what is the problem, and confirm and log out. So let's say that we've got a cracked window in room 102, and at that point I can confirm and log out in the usual way. So I will just at this point confirm rather than logging out as well. So I hope you can see that process now, the step through process, really makes the job of filing a new fault report or making a new service request somewhat easier by focusing just on the single steps that you actually need to complete for that particular issue or request. The way in which the step-through process is shown to users is governed by a couple of different preferences. There's one for the primary manager on site, and the manager can set up a preference which basically says all general staff users on this site by default will use the step-through process from this point on, or not, depending on what the manager's preference is. Each individual user also has a preference, and I'd like to show you that in Anne's account now. So I'll click the little button to go to Anne Jeffrey's preferences and just look at this option here, use step-through process for new issues. It's currently set to yes. So if I set that to no, and I go back to the front screen and I click the button to start logging a new issue, then I go to the full form. If I go back to my preferences and set that to yes, and I go back to the start screen, click the button, then I'm straight into the step-through process. So you can control if you would prefer to use the step-through process or not, and of course your manager can also set what the default is for general members of staff, but every individual can override that and set whatever preference they prefer if they would like to do that themselves. The previous button and the next button, of course, we've used the next button already, step you through the various screens. Let's just click the previous button and see what's actually already been entered. So because I'm logged in on Anne Jeffrey's account, of course, that caller information is already entered. And if any of that was missing, then this section would be red outlined in the same way as it is when you use the full form in order to call attention to the fact that there is something missing from this form. So for instance, if I delete the email address, then I get a red outline around this form saying, hang on, there's something we need to put in here. So let's just pop an email address back in there, and the red outline goes away. The next button from the yellow bit takes me to the blue section of the form where I confirm the location. And from the blue section, if I continue, I go to the green section where, of course, I need to say what is the issue. And there is still the option of going further to the orange section on the form. In some situations, there would be a date requirement at this point, but in this setup for this site, there is no date requirement. So as soon as I've entered something in the green section, I'm good to go, and the confirm button will light up and I can log out, confirm the issue and log out directly. So let's have a little look now at what this might look like from the point of view of a manager, someone with more complete access to Flow360. So I'm going to come back into the demo wearing my manager's hat. I'm going to come back in as Tim. And of course, my manager front page is rather different. My start screen is different to the general user start screen. But again, I have these preferences that I can set that determine whether or not I see for myself the step-through process or the full form process. Before we go there, I'd like to take you just to the manager preferences and show you where the manager preferences that will set things up for general members of staff. So I actually need to go through onto the Helpdesk list, and in fact it's on services, I believe, and we just need to check where that preference is. Use the step through process, which is down here. Sorry, I'm going a little bit blind for a minute. So use the step through process for new issues. This is the manager setting. It has an asterisk next to it to confirm that this will apply to general users, so it applies to all general members of staff on site. That's the manager preference, and that will immediately set that preference for all general members of staff. In addition, of course, I have my personal preference, which is up here, and I can set that to yes or no for using the step-through process. So as you saw with Anne, if as a manager I've got my personal preference to no, then of course I'm going to go through to the standard full form, the one that we're used to seeing. And of course, because I'm logged in as a manager on the full form, I have additional options here. I might see more information in terms of identifying the precise object. I might see different or additional options in the green section that allow me to identify work type or to set a chargeback option on this particular issue. And in the orange section, I will see optional entry for a target date and, of course, category listings and so on. None of this is new. This is a sort of standard stuff that's been there up to this point. If I switch to the step-through process as a manager, I get the same set of options in the step-through process. So again, the previous button allows me to check who this issue is being logged to as the caller. And of course, because I'm logged in as a manager, I can actually set this to be somebody else. So we can come down here and say, well, actually, I'm putting this in on behalf of Rod Cork. Obviously, confirm the location. As I step through, it's confirming that there are some issues I might need to double check that I'm not about to duplicate. And we'll go on to the green section. So the green section here now also in the step-through process has those additional options that a manager would see when they were using the full form. And if I step on again through to the orange section, we're going to see all of those sort of manager options there. So that, of course, just sort of confirms that we can jump backwards and forwards. The step-through process and the full form process essentially mirror each other. Let's just have a look now at logging a service request as opposed to a fault. And to do that, we're going to come back in again just as a member of staff. We're going to log in on Anne's default login here. And again, I'm going to click the new help desk issue, new service request, and we're going to change the location now. So I'm going to go to main school, and we're going to go to main building, ground floor, and let's say that we're actually, we've got a meeting in the head's office, and I need to just set up a catering request for that particular meeting. So I click on the next button. Again, there are some options here that I might check. And when I get through to the green section, all I need to do here is say, well, it's actually catering service request now. And now it's just asking me to double check that I'm not duplicating an existing catering request. Assuming I'm not, we'll go through here, and having selected catering service, I can of course just say, what's the occasion, what's this for, type it in, set a date and time on the next screen, and then log out. But notice that when I select a service option, I can use the pick lists in the same way as we can when we're looking at the full form. So let's say we need coffee and biscuits for 6 people for this particular meeting. And I go back and we've set those details, and I'm going to say what the meeting is, meeting with heads of year. And now, of course, I can't yet confirm and log out. This is a catering request. I need to specify a date and time. So let's go through and we'll say it's for tomorrow. It's slightly short notice. We'll say it's for 11 o'clock. Now I get the confirm option. Okay, I put in all the minimum amount of information. I can simply confirm that. And of course, I could have clicked confirm and log out, and that would have taken me off the system in the same way as it does normally. So the options for pick list, the options to check duplication or to try and avoid duplication whilst using the step-through process are all there. So essentially the step-through process gives you much of what the full form process gives you. There are some slight exceptions, and I'd just like to show you that briefly if we come back in as Tim, the manager, because if we are looking to put, say, an event service request in that requires additional information, if I go to the full form and I say this is actually, well, again, let's look at catering, because on the full form, when we look at catering options, we have that pick list, but we also have some additional options to specify, for instance, for a meal, number of courses or type of service required, or what the table layout should be, access times and exit times, and so on. So those additional things are not available in the step-through process. If I go to the step-through process and I go to the green form and I select the catering, then of course I can access the pick list options and I get these additional choices, but that extra tab that I can see on the full form is not available in the step-through process. So for some things, I would need to just switch from the step-through process to the full form in order to add this additional detail. But for many things, for most general users, members of staff logging issues, the step-through process is now the simpler and quicker process for adding issues to Flow360. One last thing I would like to show you. Having set a location and clicked on the next button, and then we get this, actually 3 different issues complaining that the lights are blown. That's obviously a recurring issue here. If that was the issue I was about to log, obviously I don't want to put it in again. I don't want a further duplication. But I can click this little button here and add myself to the notifications list in order that when this issue that's already logged in the system is updated, that I am included in those update notifications. And that is as simple as clicking that new notification recipient. You have been added to the notifications list. So having come into Flow360, decided I needed to log an issue, I've discovered that that issue is already on the system. I don't need to put it in again, but I do want to be informed of progress. I can now use that button and add myself to the notification recipients for all updates in relation to that issue. I can click OK, and I can go back to the start and log out. Because I'm done, I don't need to put that new issue in. So I hope that's given you a good feel for the new step-through process and how that works. We have updated the user guide, and if you go to the user guide, in fact, we can probably just do step process, and we can go through to the user guide. Let's just see if we can. Okay, we'll go through to the getting started guide, and on the help desk section here, we will find registering an issue from a room location, simple start screen, step process. Registering a new issue, simple start screen, step process. So if we click on one of those, obviously we can follow that process through, which is more or less what I've just shown you. and in the user guide it takes you through how that process works. I hope you found that useful. We will be posting this walkthrough on our YouTube channel so that you can come back and review that whenever you like. But that is all for today. Thank you for your time.